The only certain barrier to truth is the belief that you already have it. Voltaire. What if this world and everything we think about reality turned out to be very different to what we believe it to be? It's a question that very much upsets a lot of people. The evidence that I discussed recently of ancient technology, free energy devices, the fact that it seems that free energy was very readily available a couple of centuries ago anyway. I find all of this stuff incredibly interesting and intriguing, looking into the concept of ancient technology and technology that's very different from the technology we use now, such as sound frequency technology. I've seen a lot of reports recently talking about the organs, the old pipe organs, and what these were really used for, whether they were in fact instruments that were used to create sound frequency that we used for healing. And this may sound preposterous to a lot of people, but these pipe organs in these cities and these small towns, it seems like every town has one as well. I've even got reports from little villages in Mexico that don't have very much there. They've got dirt roads and all sorts of stuff, but there'll be a church in the town which has a huge pipe organ. They don't really know where it came from, but it's there. And the question is, what was the real purpose of these instruments? Were they merely for creating music, or was it really a sound healing system that they had? And Royal Raymond Rife was a man who found a way to cure all diseases way back in the 20s or 30s. I think it was in the 1930s or the 1940s, they actually had a banquet to celebrate the end of all disease due to the research and techniques that had been uncovered by Royal Raymond Rife, and he was curing incurable diseases, and he did it through sound frequency. He was able to identify viruses, live viruses in the body. He could view them with this microscope that he built. The Rife microscope was an absolutely incredible device which gave him the ability to be able to view viruses in real time. And what he would do, he would put a blood sample under the microscope, and he would look at your blood sample, and he would subject the sample to a series of light frequencies. Because every light you apply, when you go through frequencies of light and you put them on an object, different frequencies of light will illuminate different aspects of the object. Like if you put frequencies of light on a blood slide, different organisms or viruses or bacteria in the blood will become illuminated under certain lights. And Rife figured out that all you have to do is go through the light frequency until you find the light that illuminates the virus, and then find the corresponding sound frequency, bombard the virus with that sound frequency, and it will shatter like a crystal glass shatters on high C. When an opera singer hits high C, they can shatter a crystal glass. It's the same thing, it's the same principle. All you have to do is find the corresponding sound frequency, and you will create a feedback loop which will shatter the virus. And that's what Royal Rife figured out. So when you look at that, and you think of these organs and the sound that they produce and the healing that comes from sound, I mean, any people who've gone to sound healings know what I'm talking about, and sound healings may sound incredibly new age and airy-fairy to most people, but they do in fact work. And I find all of this sort of stuff quite intriguing and quite fascinating. And the concept that we had this ancient technology is really not so far-fetched. And when you think about it and you really consider the possibility that this technology has been stolen from us, it really does provide a whole new perspective to look at things from. And you think about these huge pipe organs in these churches, folks. Who built these things? I mean, these things are amazing, the construction of them. Some of them are absolutely huge. Who figured out the frequencies and who got it all that perfect? Who tuned it? And imagine the sound field that it would set up if you went through the entire keyboard and you created that level of sound. I mean, these things are incredibly loud. You could literally cover the entire village in a sound frequency. What if people went to these church buildings and they actually sat in the organ music, and the organ music healed them of all of the bacteria in their body every week when they went to these churches? Perhaps the churches were not places of worship, perhaps they were places of healing. Just a thought. Look at the detail of these organs, look at the detail that went into the construction of them, the meticulous workmanship of them. Look at the detail that went into the construction of a lot of these buildings. Like I said last week, and like I've said quite often recently, a lot of these buildings look more like machines than actual buildings. They look like they're buildings that actually perform a function, which isn't just an aesthetic function of looking good or being a place to pray in. They very much look like they are able to accumulate and harness and use energy in a way that we are unaware of. And when you begin to consider these type of things, even if you don't want to believe them, just considering them, it does open up a whole new train of thought for people. And if you can really consider this type of technology being a reality, then look at the type of technology we use now. Look at the 5G system. Look at all of this digital stuff that we're doing, which is so different to this analog technology that we were using. Anybody who knows the human vessel and understands humanity understands the difference between analog and digital and how it affects us on an emotional and on an energetic level. I mean, it does. I mean, we're very much analog in everything we do, and even that is not the probably correct way to say it, but the whole digital realm that we're being led into now, it's completely the opposite of any of this ancient type of technology they're using. Even the explosive type of electricity that we create through burning coal and all the things that we do to create electricity, if there was a way to simply do it through harmonizing with the ether around us, it would seem to be far more beneficial. I mean, just think about it, folks. You know, we're made of energy. The static electricity that is around everywhere is part of us. It's part of everything. If you're a kid, you probably had a crystal set when you were a kid, a crystal radio set. I had one when I was a child. You just combine these crystals and they harvest energy from the field, and bang, you've got electricity, you've got a radio. So why do you need to have these big coal-fired power stations? You know, if you had crystals and copper and metal and wires and put it in the right configuration, why would you not be able to harvest energy from the field? I mean, if you can do it with a crystal radio set, why can't you do it with a huge building and create an energy field which is going to work for everybody? Makes sense to me. It's just that a lot of people aren't prepared to think that way. You know, they see their crystal radio sets they had as a kid as something novel, but apply it on a bigger scale. Look at what you use to make that crystal radio set. You use crystals, you use copper wire, you used all the things that we find in these buildings. But where does it all lead? All of this type of discussion? That's the question, isn't it? I mean, with the rollout of 5G and all of the stuff that's happening, some people may ask, what is the point of looking down these rabbit holes and discussing what may have happened in the past? Well, the point is that this past is so recent. It's not thousands of years ago, it's just hundreds of years ago. And I've tried so many ways of awakening people. I've pointed out the clear and present danger that we're in. I've pointed out the state of urgency that we're in. I've addressed 9/11. I've addressed the state of Israel. I've addressed the war on terror. I've addressed every single thing I can think of to attempt to awaken people and to empower people. And the concept that we had free energy as little as 150 to 200 years ago and we lived in a completely different society, I find incredibly empowering. You know, and if people can grasp this concept and see how recently it really was, that we were very likely in much freer societies than we are now, it may inspire them to want to get back to that. You know, we've got remnants of this culture still here all over the earth. These big copper top buildings, these big churches, these spires, all these things that we can't build now. You know, even the pipe organs that I was talking about before. I mean, you go and find someone who can go and build one of these pipe organs for you. See if you can find someone. See if you can find a church that's even using one of these pipe organs now. Now, most churches, they may have a pipe organ in there, but it's rarely used. And if it is used, it's just used to play hymns. You think they would really go to all the trouble of constructing an organ of this size and shape and magnitude of some of the ones that you see in these old churches and just use them for playing tunes behind hymns on Sundays? Do you really think they would go to all that effort just to do that? It seems pretty incongruous to me. But I don't know, I find all of this type of information really empowering. Perhaps it will inspire people to actually shake the sleep from their eyes, because that's really what it's like. It's like people are walking around in a daze. All of this technology exists all around them. All of this old world, a lot of the old world still exists all around them, but they're simply not seeing it because they can't see outside of the social construct that they have in their minds. They can't see beyond the history that they've been told, the history they've been taught, the world that they've been indoctrinated into believing is real. You know, a lot of people, when they look at society, they just view it economically. They don't view it from a human perspective. But our society should be there to support life. That should be first and foremost the absolute mandate of anything that we construct to have people living in. Any cities should be designed to support life. We don't need cities that are designed the way they are, that are designed to run economically and that are based on profit. Medical systems that are based on profit, energy systems that are based on profit. Everything is based on profit. It's this introduction of money and thus scarcity over the human experience which creates all of this substandard culture that we've got, all of these substandard products. It removes us of everything that it means to be human by imposing this economic model over people. That's what it's been for. That's what it's been designed to do. And that's why we can never escape this system until we put all of that thinking down. If people still think economically, if people still think that this society is normal, that it should function this way, that we need to do the things that we're doing, then there's no hope for us. If we're going to continue to support these cities that we live in, which are designed to separate people and to make them completely dependent upon the system. You can't grow your own food, you can't ever survive on your own in a city. It's a jungle, and it's designed to be that way, both physically and mentally. Everything about the cities is jungle mentality. Survival of the fittest. Only the things that you need for you to survive are not there. Unless you can exploit someone else and get the paper you need to pay to be alive to go and buy these things from some establishment, there's nothing there in your environment that you can actually use to create a life for yourself. It's all economically based. It's simply not the natural habitat of humans. Humans shouldn't be living in these cities. They don't serve us in any way, shape or form. And if you look at the way cities were constructed back in the past cultures, they very much seem to be designed in a way that would serve the people and that would benefit the people, even possibly heal the people, as we've just been previously discussing. Now you look at all this stuff and you see just what we had and just what we are capable of doing. And I don't know, I find it incredibly empowering to think about this. And I find it inspiring, I find it healing. And I think this type of information may be something that will wake people up. So